Do you agree with him? And if so, how high a net debt to GDP ratio are you willing to run?
Today's report, we're going to cover Canada and its commitment to NATO. I've actually crunched the numbers and the math is not mathing. And a senator, he just falls over in the Senate. I've never seen anything like it in my lifetime. And David Eby, he beats around the bush, but in a nutshell, he says absolutely zero pipeline from Alberta. He's literally going to break us. And Mark Carney says that Donald Trump no longer wants to annex Canada. So either he's lying or the elbows up media panic was manufactured, but I'll let you decide. We're going to go over some data about Canada's labor productivity. And I have to warn you, it's like worse than you could imagine. Donald Trump also gets called Big Daddy, and he actually liked it. New scathing information came out about Canada's head of Canada's public health agency. And I have to be 100% honest with you. It is shocking. We got some new information on immigration. Let's go. Before we go to the most recent NATO information, I think it's important to look at history. This is a year ago, Justin Trudeau talking about his military spending for NATO.
A credible, concrete plan that gets us to 1.74% by 2030. Now,
holy crap, 1.75% by year 2030. Now let's see what we're committing today. Mark Carney absolutely despises talking about budgets. He doesn't like talking about money at all. And he's this supposed economic genius and has been working in the finance sector his entire career. Watch what he does when he's asked a basic budgeting question.
Thank you. My other question, I'll try and be fast, is
that's question 4.
about the commitment to hundreds of billions of dollars cumulatively you've made today. The parliamentary budget officer told us that implies higher deficits unless you either raise taxes or cut major projects, social spending. So do you agree with him? And if so, how high a net debt to GDP ratio are you willing to run?
We will grow this economy. We'll grow this economy. We'll balance our operational budget in 3 years. That's our commitment. But we will also invest in this country, including in our defense industry. Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh my goodness. Are you satisfied with that answer? Let's see him roll his eyes again. Look at that smile. Check him out when he rolls his eyes. Right there. Oh, what the hell is going on? It's like he's possessed. What's going on with Mark Carney? And my biggest issue with this NATO is his commitment to Europe and saying that Canada is the #1 non-European country. We have the same values. We're basically European. Let's check this out.
Follow-up question is more of a reflection on the trip and what you hope to accomplish overall here. You said the other day that Canada is the most European of the non-European countries. You came here to sign a security and defense partnership. Serious question, is there any way, or have you given any thought to possibly trying to chart a path to joining the European Union? Obviously, it's a geographical series of countries, but they also share a philosophy about how to arrange society and how to treat individuals, and they share a lot of values with us. So is that door completely closed to us, or is there anything like being an observer or something that we can get to? Because I have to say that question comes up a lot in talking to Canadians these days.
Interesting. I haven't heard it expressed to
Interesting
me by Canadians, or many Canadians. So the short answer is no. That's not the intent. That's not the pathway we're on. But much of what you said in your question, I would subscribe to, which is that most European and non-European nations. That's not necessarily a comment about the historical makeup of the country, but it's the relative value set, the value on liberty, the value on democracy, the importance of solidarity. We have similar social welfare systems. The importance we put on sustainability. Our ability to mutualize, in other words, to work with others and protect. Our belief in a rules-based international system, which the footprint of that is shrinking, but it's not immaterial, and we're helping to build that with Europe. And the way we see it, if I could frame it, final comment, and this could be a bigger discussion at the right point. Europe, part of what Europe is focused on as members of the European Union is a so-called ever closer union. We're looking for a closer partnership with that union. So yes, we cooperate much more clearly and broadly to our mutual benefit, but not as a member, but along that continuum.
No. He's just twisting the words. We're basically marrying Europe, and we're going to have to follow all of those carbon restrictions. It's just, they think that he's saying that they have the same values as us. What he's trying to say is that Europe's going to cooperate with us because they're the most woke, liberal organization ever, and we're going to partake in it. That's what he's saying. That is exactly what Canada is doing. And I don't like any of it. I don't want any part of Europe. We are North American. We should be forming the strongest ties and partnership with the United States, the #1 economy in the world. And here is the most concerning part of the all of the clips of NATO. This one clip is the most alarming. Listen up closely.
Spoken about the idea that Canadians will need to make sacrifices to pay for defense spending. Can you outline what sacrifices you're expecting Canadians to make?
Well, I think right now we're in the the people who've been making sacrifices have been the men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces. Because they have not been paid to reflect what we are asking them to do. They haven't been operating with the right equipment in many cases. Many cases, their equipment hasn't been working. So the first sacrifices have been there, and we're making up for that and level setting that. And that's an important part of just what we're doing this year in terms of the increase in defense. The second thing I'd say is that the way we're looking at this, and you'll hear more about this in the coming months, that the investments we're making in defense and security, broader security, given the new threats that Canada faces, I think those, we're not at a trade-off. We're not at sacrifices in order to do those. These will be net additive. In other words, more of this will happen in Canada. More of it will help build our economy at the same time as it improves our defense, and we'll get the benefits. The question is, as we move towards later in this decade, and depending on how the threat environment evolves globally, if we are moving to the higher and higher levels of defense spending because that's necessary, then we will have to make considerations about what less the federal government can do in certain cases and how we're going to pay for it. Those trade-offs, I'm going to give you false precision around this, but those trade-offs happen towards the end of the decade into the next decade, and we will be much better informed. And if I can go back to Steve Chase's question, the social license element of that, there's going to be a very clear and open conversation about that based on facts and based on what Canadians want.
Yeah, so he just, oh man, this is too much. So he says within a decade, we're not going to be able to afford all this spending. It's way before then. This leads me perfectly to my math. Let's take a look. Let's go over the math. So currently we're at 1% GDP. That's $30 billion. Mark Carney's pledged to bring it to 2% by the end of this year. That's $60 billion. And by year 2035, they want to pledge 5%, which is equal to $150 billion. Just so that people know where we spend our money. 50% of all the money that we spend is on healthcare and social spending, which represents 50% of our budget. if they double, if they want to get to $150 billion, they're going to have to cut hospitals, senior benefits, family supports, not a little, but billions every year. Or they could increase taxes, as if we would be able to handle more taxes. There's no way. Or we could borrow more money. But between all the governments, federal, provincial, municipal, our debt service is $94 billion a year in just interest payments. Do you honestly think that our country could afford to take on this level of debt? I don't think so. Or they could just print the money. And if they print the money, we're going to see 15 to 20% inflation permanently. It's just going to go on and on and on. And the reality check is Mark Carney knows it. The elites know it. And Canadians are kept in the dark because they don't do the math. We can't afford to go to 5%. The only way that I could see us going up to 5% is if we allow, we rip up the Paris Accord, climate, everything, and we just start drilling until we reach all the oil. That is the only way. Now let's take a look at Senator Brazeau. I hope he's okay, but I've never seen anything like this in my life. I heard it's possible, it does happen, but check this out.
Senator Brazeau.
Thank you very much, and oh shit. Oh shit.
Why does he say, oh, and then fall like that? To me, I've never seen anything like that. I heard it's possible. You get a few seconds before you pass out. Anyway, hopefully he's doing okay. We're supposed to get this amazing trade deal with the United States on July 17th. But now that Mark Carney's gone to Europe and strengthened our ties with the EU, this article comes out and says, Prime Minister Mark Carney lowers expectations on Monday about reaching an agreement with the United States. And I wonder why. Donald Trump's probably like, I don't want to do a deal with Canada anymore. We're going to move on to David Eby, but brace yourself.
Today, Premier Danielle Smith in Alberta said she believes she's 5 weeks away from finding a proponent to build a pipeline from Alberta to BC's coast. If she's able to find a proponent and that proponent pays for the pipeline in its entirety, would you support that bitumen pipeline going through British Columbia to a port in Prince Rupert?
Well, Richard, I guess some of my frustration about this issue is that there is no proponent. There is actually no project here. I went through a list that reflects probably in excess of $50 billion of investment in Canada and in our country, where there are proponents, where they are well through or on the verge of being complete through environmental assessment processes, where support from the federal government will benefit not just British Columbia, but also Alberta and the Yukon. And I think that's where our attention should be, on the shovel-ready projects that are ready to go.
Next, we'll head to the phone lines with Katie DeRosa from CBC.
You didn't answer Richard's question about whether you support a privately funded or entirely privately funded pipeline. Can you clarify your position on that?
Yeah, I did. I won't speculate. There is no project. There is no proponent. And as a premier of a province with literally almost $50 billion of projects with proponents that are ready to go, that are in approvals processes, that will benefit Alberta, the Yukon, and all Canadians, I strongly encourage the federal government to pay attention to those projects and help us deliver those projects that are ready to go.
Unbelievable. You see, he's not going to commit to any oil pipelines going through British Columbia. As I wrote here, David Eby always says that Canada needs to stand on our own 2 feet, but then buys ferries from China, builds the Patello Bridge with China steel, we found out. And now he wants to block Alberta pipelines to Asia. But sure, the biggest threat right now is the US, right? Watch David Eby now go on an unhinged, completely unhinged, and I'm sure he's talking about my channel right now as well.
This is a party that has spoken out against the province's actions to respond to Donald Trump's attacks on our economy. that has brought in far-right YouTubers into our legislature and anti-choice organizations into the legislature. This is a group of people that includes climate deniers, residential schools deniers. The far-right politics of this group are extreme, and no matter who is leading them, they're going to face significant challenges. I think the contrast is pretty stark for British Columbians. If they want stability, if they want government that is committed to their priorities and delivering for them, whether it's growing the economy or strong public services or safe communities, if they want a group of politicians that are not continually attacking each other and making criminal allegations against each other, then obviously it's the BC NDP that they should be looking to for that. The contrast is quite stark, and we're going to stay focused on people moving forward. The Conservatives will do what they're doing right now.
Holy crap. Did you get any of that? He is so far left and unhinged. Anything that doesn't go by his left-wing ideology is seen as a far-right extremist. If you just think normally, you are considered far. So far, you're gone. And here are all the articles that are coming out on David Eby. BC David Eby isn't impressed with all the talk of new pipeline coming from his Alberta counterparts. You just saw David Eby. He's all about safety. The streets have never been less safe under David Eby. And all of the unrestricted access to you know what. Geez, this guy he's living in a different world, a fantasy land. What we actually see with our eyes is completely different than what he describes. And yeah, he's anti-prosperity. Mark Carney now says that President Trump does not want to annex Canada.
President Trump tends to be a transactional and be very personal. And sometimes he thinks, or maybe you know differently. Apparently they say that you're the Trump whisperer of the leaders.
I'm not
and
sure
that you're on texting, relations with him and you're constantly talking. So is he still saying he wants to annex Canada?
He's not. He's not. He admires Canada, I think it's fair to say, and maybe for a period of time coveted Canada. But
you've put that to bed.
Well, look, we're two sovereign nations who are discussing the future of our trade relationships, our defense partnership, which has been very strong in the past. How is that going to evolve? But again, I would say it this way: the president is focused on a series of changing bilateral relations. We're at NATO. He's been focused on making sure that all members, Canada included, of NATO pay their fair share, carry their weight. I think we are now doing that.
Either Mark Carney's lying or the elbows up thing was completely made up. You decide. Watch Donald Trump get called daddy, and he absolutely loved it.
He called you daddy earlier. Do you regard your NATO allies as kind of children?
No, he likes me. I think he likes me. If he doesn't, I'll let you know. I'll come back and I'll hit him hard, okay? No? He did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy.
Do you regard your NATO allies, though, as kind of like children, and they're obviously listening to you and they're spending more, and you're obviously
What do you think, Canada? What if Donald Trump told Mark Carney, if you call me Big Daddy, by July 17th, you're going to have an amazing trade deal for Canada? Will Mark Carney call him Big Daddy? Please just call him Big Daddy. I got some data for you. The impact of government debt on labor productivity in Canada. The average growth rate in a percentage of labor productivity, Canada and the United States, over the last 42 years, starting from 1981. But check out, Canada is the orange, and look at the last 10 years. We're not even, it's barely a blip. It's like this big. We are in big trouble. Things are getting so bad in this country. People are starting to bathe themselves on the City of Toronto transit system. Welcome to Canada. Imagine you're a visitor to the City of Toronto and you see this. Where's the water? We have scathing new information about the head of Canada's public health agency. First, she makes $300,000, but that's not the thing. She has a master's in chemical engineering, no MD, no PhD, no public health degree whatsoever. Are you going to take health advice from our new top doctor that has no doctor experience whatsoever? Let's actually look at her experience. Since she graduated in chemical engineering, she has been working for the government in Environment and Climate Change Canada. You can't make any of this stuff up. Her entire career is on climate change, except for in 2022 to 2023, she was part of the food branch. Yeah, I wonder why. Here's Canada's top doctor talking about climate change.
At this point in time, how many people have heard the sentence, Canada's climate has changed at twice the rate, the global rate, 3 times in the north? How many people have heard that? So typically, and this is a typical audience, about 90% of people have heard that sentence that has come from Canada's Changing Climate Report, but that's an indicator of the extent to which others have deemed that to be the truth. Earlier, we were someone was asking me, do you face skeptics in your role? And we do. So, despite the fact that we find 90% on average of people believing that and having the confidence in the science, there's not quite 90%, but a significant proportion of Canadians and global citizens who do not believe that and inform us of that view based on the number of dockets.
Okay, I can't continue. I'm so sorry. But I wanted you to hear how many ahs she said. I don't know. Who does it more? Is it Mark Carney or is it Canada's top doctor? Oh God, our country is cooked. I just don't understand why we can't have the healthiest looking person in charge of our health. Is that too much to ask for? That's all I'm saying. Some new information on immigration, and this is going to be alarming. Canada's Immigration Department just set a target to keep 25% of our entire labor force made up of immigrants and refugees. This is at the same time that our youth job unemployment rate is at the worst levels. Temporary foreign workers now run small malls and fast food joints, which could go to our youth. Confidence in our system, they're admitting it's straight up collapsing. Let's take a look at this data. This is incredible. Their target is 25%, but that's minimum. It could go above 25%. Right now, we're currently at 29% of our labor force. With unemployment rates going up across this country, they're still backing this. That's the most alarming part. They're not even walking away from this. We need to demand answers here. And here's the headline. Ottawa sets target to keep Canada's labor force at 25% immigrants. That's it. That's the headline. And they're actually actively doing this right now. I think this is a great way to end this report. It's not just Canada that has problems. In the United States, they have their own problems. They just elected a left-wing Democrat, which stunned former governor of New York, Mr. Cuomo. The guy on the left is the new guy, and let's see what he's going to do first.
Grocery prices are out of control. The cost of eggs and milk has skyrocketed. Some stores are even using dynamic pricing, jacking up the cost over the course of a day depending on what they can get away with. It doesn't need to be this way. I'm Zahran Mamdani, and as mayor, I will create a network of city-owned grocery stores. It's like a public option for produce. We will redirect city funds from corporate supermarkets to city-owned grocery stores, whose mission is lower prices, not price gouging. These stores will operate without a profit motive or having to pay property taxes or rent, and will pass on those savings to you.
Oh boy, what could go wrong? I'd love to hear from you in the comment section. Do you think this is a good idea? It sounds like it could go horribly wrong. That's it for today's report. It was a little bit longer, but that's okay. There was lots of good information. I'll see you on the next report.